is often seen as starting point, and it's been suggested that B1 students can succeed with extra support. However, there's been scarce research into how best to support students and also staff working on these programmes. And this will be the focus of my talk, my very short talk this morning. This is concerning given that the writing studies showcase a number of language-related challenges, and these are noted to be a major barrier in successful EMI policy implementation. So given the growing body of research documenting language-related challenges, we really need to question whether the typical high school graduate in places such as Taiwan is at such a level and able to study subject matter in English. And this is a topic that Heath will explore in more detail next. And if not, then what support do they need and what resources do they need? And also what demands does this play on both the English as a subject teacher and also the content lecturer delivering the lecture in English? Language-related challenges have also been documented with regards to content lecturers, and we've already mentioned of this morning. And again, this is something that I'll return to in this short talk. So the largely unfettered growth in EMI provision around the world has had and will continue to have an impact on those working in higher education. We see more and more demand for content, as we saw this morning, we see more and more demand for content lecturers to teach in English with this rapid transition to EMI in higher education. But what's often forgotten is that we're also seeing more demands placed on English as a subject teachers to provide the requisite skills and support for both staff, content lecturers, but also for students, not just general English programs now in universities. So not just to be able to prepare their students with communicative English for communicative purposes, but also to study through English in academic settings. What we're seeing, as I mentioned then, is a movement from the provision of general English in universities to more subject-specific courses, and this is certainly placing a lot of demands on English language teachers in university settings. In addition, the language training and support needs of those delivering content instruction in English are also placing demands on English teachers who are often recruited to help them with their English skills or provide additional English courses. So in this short talk, very short talk, I only have 15 minutes, I'll explore some of these demands being placed on those working in higher education contexts in places such as Taiwan that are witnessing increased moves to EMI. In doing so, I'll also highlight the changing role of the English as a subject teacher, as well as the integral role of language instructors in ensuring the educational outcomes in EMI. And I'll also very briefly explore some of the training needs for both ELT practitioners and also EMI instructors. Before doing so, I thought it would be helpful just firstly to introduce myself and who am I. I am a senior lecturer at the University of Glasgow. Now, before this, as an EAP coordinator in one of Japan's first EMI universities, I was in Japan for 10 years teaching English. My research in EMI involves doing a number of British Council funded case studies. I recently edited a literature review for the British Council on EMI in higher education. And I work as a consultant with the University of Tokyo, where I've developed 2 MOOCs for faculty development in EMI. And I'll return in December this year for 2 months to develop their EMI faculty development programme. I also lead an online network on EMI, so this is a researcher and practitioner network. Oh, struggling to change my slides here. So as we know then, government language policies cannot be translated into practice without consideration of the stakeholders, resources and other factors. Although with regards to EMI in higher education, they're all being enforced, still being enforced in a very top-down fashion, despite the lack of such research. And my research really stems from the need for a more bottom-up approach to policy implementation, for a large-scale needs analysis, and for consultation with language education experts, which is one of the key points that I want to stress in my talk this morning. Or maybe afternoon, I think, for everybody in Taiwan. So education systems around the world have been rapidly internationalizing in recent decades. As part of this trend, more and more universities have been incorporating English into their academic curriculum. Initial growth was in Europe, which witnessed a tenfold increase in the number of EMI programs over a period of just 10 years. We had a 1,115% growth in 13 years. But EMI has boomed in recent decades and has certainly become one of the most significant trends facing universities around the globe today. What we've seen then is global growth in EMI as part of the internationalization of higher education. Internationalization has almost become synonymous with Englishization in the university context. EMI has spread from the traditional hotspots such as the Netherlands and Northern Europe to around the world. Now, there's many reasons behind the growth in EMI. In some contexts, EMI is related to a lack of educational materials. There's more materials in English. As I mentioned, moves to internationalise higher education. EMI is seen to provide access to cutting-edge knowledge, contribute to a brain gain. It can help attract international students and faculty, so to raise the profile and the status of the university. It can generate income. In places like Japan, it's been known as to be a lifeline of the universities amidst a dwindling domestic student population. But in many contexts, increasingly, particularly in emerging EMI contexts, many governments see the need now for the education of an international population, and knowledge of one's subject area in one's own language is now seen to be insufficient, and we increasingly see this link between EMI and English language proficiency goals. Now, EMI also has a number of perceived benefits at the national, I've mentioned some of them, institutional, and also at the personal level as well. My own research in East and Southeast Asia has highlighted that students' main reason for signing up to EMI programs was to improve their English proficiency. Now, this is interesting given that by definition, and this is highly problematic, EMI has no language learning goals. And with this lack of a large-scale needs analysis, but also a lack of program aims and learning objectives in many contexts, this is leading to a lot of confusion over the purpose of the EMI program. What we see here in this continuum, and I think Heath will also explain this in his talk, unlike content and language integrated learning, CLIL, which has a dual focus of both teaching language and content, EMI is often seen to be more towards the right, towards content, whereas we have English as a subject on the far left, towards language. This is problematic given that my research, as I mentioned, students' main reason for signing up to the course was to improve their English proficiency. And as a result, they expected their content lecturers to also help them with their language-related challenges. Content lecturers, on the other hand, saw the purpose of the programme to be solely the delivery of the content. Now, with these differing conceptualizations of EMI, this also influenced their attitudes towards language use in the classroom. Students saw any use of their mother tongue as a sign of a lack of proficiency of their teachers, but the teachers saw this as a useful pedagogic tool because placing more importance on content delivery. So this was found to be problematic in my research. My research has also highlighted a number of language-related challenges. Several studies highlight issues with students' English proficiency, and this has been reported to have detrimental effects on their educational outcomes. And this sometimes leads to students falling behind or perhaps even changing courses. And I've interviewed a lot of students that have dropped out of the EMI programme. It is important to remember that these difficulties are also, as well as training needs, are discipline specific, but research is highlighting a growing number of language-related challenges that students have. In Vietnam recently, I found that teaching assistants were being recruited to translate the subject matter for students. And in Thailand, about half of the students were auditing the Thai medium class, and they were very, very concerned about their future employment within Thailand because of they didn't feel they were learning as much about the subject as they would on the Thai medium course. This raises a number of questions then. Different universities take different approaches to EMI. Some have different entrance requirements. Needs analysis is crucial to examine the different levels of students and the different needs of students. And again, this is context and discipline specific. As I mentioned at the start, CEFR B2 is often seen as a starting point, and it's been suggested that B1 students can succeed with extra support. But as I mentioned, we need to question whether our typical high school graduates are ready for this. My research has highlighted differing and often flexible entrance requirements. Entrance requirements were often lowered because to attract fee-paying EMI students. As we know, the programmes are often double or triple. And this places a lot of pressure on the teachers who have students in their classrooms with varying educational abilities and also varying English levels as well. EMI research is in a relative stage of infancy, and in terms of understanding how to confront students' academic and language-related challenges, we are seeing a growing number of studies, however, though, and this is highlighting the importance of integrating academic and language support programmes for students. So here then, with this growing need for supporting students on these programmes, we see an expanding role of the English as a subject teacher in EMI. Much of the research, as I noted, has focused on content lecturers, and ELT practitioners are often overlooked. But EMI, the growth of EMI, is placing a lot of demands on the ELT practitioner. We see a number of increased opportunities for ELT practitioners to specialise. I had to do this when I was working in Japan in an international business university. I knew nothing about international business. In many contexts, such as Vietnam, many ELT practitioners are now entering the field as EAP or ESP practitioners. We see an increased number of students not just majoring in English, but English with business, English with science. So in Vietnam, they almost have a ready-made workforce for the growth in EMI. We also see that job opportunities are changing. So as I mentioned, general English courses are now being replaced with more discipline-specific and academic-specific courses. And we really need more research on the training needs of both content lecturers, but also the ELT practitioner as well as more collaboration between the two. What we see in this model then is, I just want to highlight very briefly, there's different approaches taken to EMI. So some offer a preparatory year model, so students will take a 1-year intensive pre-sessional course. Others will take it alongside their courses. Others will be pre-selected, so they will have an English test on arrival, and the ostrich model, where EMI programmes or lecturers just bury their heads in the sand. Students don't receive any support whatsoever, and it's just assumed that they can survive in these contexts. The role of content lecturers and English as a subject lecturers will vary according to what model is taken to implementing EMI. What I wanted to show you here then this is just the example from the university that I worked at in Japan, where we saw that in first year, students took EAP classes. In the first half of the semester, they had general English, then they had EAP, then they had more intensive EAP, Then towards the latter half of the second year and into their third year, they had ESP courses, and then they started their EMI courses. So this was a sheltered approach to EMI, and we worked very closely in collaboration with the content lecturers to design a tailor-made course. This need for collaboration is key, and this is one of the key points that I want to make here. It is, however, a major challenge. The lack of collaboration between ELT teachers and content lecturers has been identified as a key barrier. There's been a lot of calls for team teaching, but obviously this is quite resource intensive. And there's also questions over who should provide the support. Students, as I mentioned, often feel the content teachers should help with their language-related challenges, but content lecturers often feel this is beyond their skill set. I mean, we have some Nobel Prize winning professors teaching their subjects, but yet there's been calls for them to have more ELT training as well. We really need more discussion on the training needs of both content faculty and ELT teachers. Discussions on English language proficiency are clearly controversial, and rather than recruiting large numbers of native English speakers to come, and resources are better spent training local teachers at the local level. We need locally informed needs analysis to inform a bottom-up approach to EMI policy implementation. What are the needs of our teachers in the Taiwanese context, for example? We do see many contexts are starting to provide language training for EMI teachers, but as accomplished academics, as I mentioned, some are Nobel Prize winning academics, often publishing in highly ranked journals in their field. This is a complex matter, and I think we need to move away from a focus on proficiency in English and more towards pedagogy and how to teach in an increasingly internationalized classroom. And some content teachers have referred to the lack of TESOL or ELT training themselves. And we do see in recent years an increased number of courses that focus on both language and pedagogy. I just have a couple more slides. So to conclude then, EMI continues to be implemented, quite worryingly so, in a top-down fashion. And I would like to call today for more consultation with language acquisition experts to support students, but also to focus on their own training needs as well, and how to collaborate with content instructors to ensure that these perceived benefits of EMI at all levels can be achieved. It's clear from research that students require support, but opinions vary on who should provide this support to students. Much of the literature also centres on the lack of systematic support for content lecturers, but we really need to consider the needs and the training needs of our English as a subject teachers as well with this rapid move towards EMI. So overall, I would like to end by urging those considering introducing EMI to focus on a large-scale needs analysis and to consider both the role of those teaching in English, but also those teaching English as a subject in the university. We need to examine what support they need and what forms this collaboration can take to ensure the best educational outcomes for our students as well. This is something I've been aiming to do with the global network that I set up. This is a researcher and practitioner network on EMI, and we have a Taiwan section. And so if you're interested in this, then please do email me. We have a member mailing list. We have a Facebook group with, I think, over 800 members now. And the idea is to make our EMI research more accessible as well, but also to provide resources for practitioners working in these contexts. And this is some of the early career researchers we have on our YouTube channel. Okay, that's all from me, my short 15-minute talk today. Thank you very much.